Growing up in Macomb, I read that both of your parents were teachers.
No, actually, my dad was a professor in physical education.
And what'd your mom do?
She was just took care of 4 kids.
Did we like growing up in Macomb?
Well, we moved to Macomb in 1970, so I went to elementary school primarily in Petersburg, Virginia.
Hmm.
So I got to Macomb in 6th grade and went there 6 years. So I graduated from Macomb High School.
I read that your mom, it's a funny quote. It's in a Sports Illustrated magazine thing. We're going to call him Philip Bradley because Phil Bradley is easy for the announcers to say.
That's what I heard. I heard that's why she named both of her boys, uh, gave them names that they could shorten to make it easy for the announcers.
Going to ask you a question. Who is Roger Kelso?
Roger Kelso, I went to high school with his son Clark. I would spend my summers out on their farms helping them. Uh, I wouldn't say help them farm, but help them do chores around the farm.
And we did that while you were in college. We kind of
Started in high school, did it some in college also.
a place that you could kind of get away from everything.
You know, it was a place for me to generate some revenue, some income. And to be honest with you, looking back on it, it was a place to stay in shape. You know, uh, baling hay, uh, helping to castrate hogs. You know, there was a lot of manual labor going on, digging post holes. You know, looking back on it, it played a significant role just in my overall physique, really.
You castrated hogs?
Well, I was the one that used to hold the hogs while someone else would castrate them.
I think every day I don't have to do that is a good day.
Well, you know, you do what you do. You know, do what you know. It's part of farm life back in those days. Now, you know, not very many people raise hogs, or not very many people have cattle. So it's a lot different now.
So, Phil, I'm 51, and like a lot of St. Louisans my age, you were how I found Missouri football. You were how I now waste way too much time following Missouri football, Missouri sports, because of the love that I had while you were playing for those teams. Dick Jameson recruited you, either Mizzou or Iowa. Why Mizzou?
One, because of Dick Jameson. Two, because of they were going to let me play baseball and football. And I think one of the biggest reasons was the schedule that Missouri football used to play back then. You know, back then they used to be considered like, you know, the giant killers. You know, they used to play the Davids of the country, and sometimes they would upset them. But just the challenge of playing the schedule that they would play year in and year out was very appealing to me.
Do you have a good recruiting story about what other coaches offered you or what other schools told you they would do for you if you came to their school?
No, you know, Iowa and Missouri. It came down to Iowa and Missouri. They were probably the same distance away from my home. They both were going to let me play baseball and football. The baseball coaches turned out were very good friends, so they were kind of identical in personality. Ironically, both head coaches got fired after my freshman year, so it turned out no matter which school I'd have gone to, it wouldn't have been the coach that I originally had signed with.
Right.
But in the end, I think it was Coach Jameson that was probably the deciding factor.
You just wanted to be in black and gold. You didn't care.
Well, that's not even the same either, because I was black and gold too. So, that was basically the same. I mean, it really, and being from Macomb, I took 3 recruiting visits. I went out to Duke. Kansas had some interest. Illinois turned me off because they weren't going to let me play baseball. Indiana had some interest. That's where my dad went to school. They kind of came in late, but I believe that was a year they were in a coaching transformation too. So they got in late. But at the end of the day, I think, Dick Jameson was from Peoria, so he knew where I was from. He was on me early. He was on me often. And the relationship that we had prior to coming to the university and the 1 year, and even after he had left, was a special relationship.
For my money, maybe the best recruiting class in Missouri history.
Well, I can't speak about the rest of the recruiting classes in Missouri history, but I know the one that I was a part of was a very special class. And when you look at those names and not only how they performed while at the university, but what they did upon leaving the university, it was a very successful class.
Phil, any story behind why 15?
No, not other than that's what I wore in high school. I'm not even sure how that started. I mean, I don't know if something other than that was a number that I was given in high school.
Back in the day, did they have stars? Like, were you a 3-star? Were you a 4-star? Anything like that? Any idea?
I have no idea. I mean, I was all state. But I just realized it was the class I came into, the graduating. It's a class of 81, which is, basically 40 years later now.
Right.
And the way recruiting is now, they probably wouldn't even recruited me now, because my senior year was my best year. And oftentimes they make commitments on players way before you get to be a senior. By then, most of the scholarships are gone. So I'm very happy that I played in the era that I played, because I was a late developer. I mean, Macomb has 1,000 kids. We had decent athletics, but it wasn't any powerhouse school. So not a lot of kids came out of there. So to be picked out of there, it was a special opportunity for me.
Was there any school that was recruiting you only for baseball?
No, because again, that was the meal ticket. If you got a football scholarship, that was an opportunity to get a free education. So the baseball was kind of a byproduct of football.
Plan is to come to Mizzou, sit on the sidelines, learn a bit. That lasted about 2 quarters.
And again, that's, I think, now that you say that, that was another reason I went to Missouri, is because Missouri had a quarterback coming back and Iowa didn't. And to be honest with you, I didn't know if I could play quarterback or play college football. I wasn't one of those kids that was going to come in there and just win
the world.
Yes, exactly. So the funny thing you don't know is when you think that you're the only quarterback being recruited, only to find out there were 3 other freshman quarterbacks in your class and another 6 or 8 quarterbacks already there. That was the shocker when you first get there. But when it was all said and done, yeah, I came out of the fall practice. I was the backup quarterback, and that lasted, the first quarter of the game and partially into the second quarter.
So you're from Macomb, second quarter freshman year, and you're in front of 70,000 people who don't like you.
Well, I was more concerned about the fact that I weighed 155 pounds playing against the University of Southern California. That was a little bit of a bit bigger concern to me than how the fans were going to receive me.
I would like to leave with both of my arms, please.
Well, I learned very quickly that it wasn't Macomb, Illinois anymore. It wasn't high school football anymore. When you think about high school football, you think about defensive backs being your size or smaller, only to find out when you get into college that that's not the case at all. There's no one on the field smaller than you.
When you're done with that USC game, who do you call and say, this is different, this is not Kansas?
Well, I realized, I still remember early on in my career getting picked up and slammed down and realized that I might have bitten off a little bit more than I could chew.
I need to hand this ball off as fast as possible.
No, it wasn't as much that as I needed to pick and choose my battles as to when I was going to be aggressive and when I was going to look to get to the ground.
Oh, I got you. All right. Did you enjoy it, or were you just kind of living in the moment trying to get through it?
What, the first game?
First game, first year, freshman year.
The first year, looking back on it, was a testament of what I really believed that I thought, which was I wasn't ready. I had my moments. I had, but again, we played University of Southern California, and they may or may not been defending national champions. You'd have to check that.
Right.
Then we played Illinois, at Illinois. Then we played Cal Berkeley, and I believe they had Joe Roth and Chuck Muncie. Then we went to the university. We went to Arizona State. They had, I believe, John Jefferson. So it wasn't like we were, if you, and again, it's going to sound like a slam at the way they schedule games now, but it wasn't like we played a 1AA team and a mid-MAC team. I mean, when I tell you it was Southern Cal, Illinois, Cal Berkeley, and Arizona State. That's 3 Pac-12. Well, Pac-12 is Pac-8 then.
Right.
That was our first 4 games before we got to a quote unquote breather when we got to go to Ames, Iowa.
Little Sisters of the Poor was not on your schedule.
No, but again, that's what I signed up for.
Right.
But I just didn't realize that I was going to be baptized so soon.
So first year could have gone better. 4-7. Anafrio loses to Kansas for the 6th time in 7 games. Warren Powers comes in, changes from the I to the veer. Did you understand as you were practicing for Powers initially that this was going to be a good thing for you?
Well, that is what I did in high school. So from that perspective, that worked out for me. And again, what didn't work out for me though was getting hurt very early on in spring practice my freshman year, and really didn't get much spring practice.
And yet you still got the first string job.
Well, that fall I did. Yeah, because I think I got hurt early on in spring practice. I think I came back. I tried to play in the spring game. I got hurt again, and I didn't play much in the spring game. So really looking back, no, I didn't get much work in their offense. But again, there was a lot of, sprint out passing. That's what I probably did in high school. Running the veer, that's what I did in high school. So it was very comfortable from that perspective.
So again, Phil, thanks for the time. Didn't contact you until late yesterday afternoon. Did do some research last night. Here's what I would call is Phil Bradley's a great guy. All the quotes I saw, all the articles, Wilder, Gant, and Ellis, what a strong backfield we have. Never in any of the articles did I find did you include yourself in that conversation. I mean, that's being humble, but again, at the same time, what does that mean as I throw that at you?
I was fortunate to play. My freshman year didn't go well, but a lot of it was the fact that not only did the quarterback get hurt, we had a lot of injuries. We had a lot of guys playing that weren't expected to be playing. So the first year was very difficult in a lot of ways. We come back the second year, and we had 3 backs in the backfield that turned out to be NFL running backs. We had a tight end who ended up being an NFL Hall of Famer. We had another receiver who played in the NFL. My job was very simple, and that was to hand the ball off and get the ball to the people who can make plays. It wasn't about me. And again, I was the young guy. All those other guys, they were all, Wilder was my age, but the rest of the guys I just mentioned, they were seniors. I had already I don't even know what the term is, held back their football careers, their junior years, because I wasn't very good.
You
So
say that.
the least I could do was play better their senior years. And I'm not taking credit for their successes, but at least it gave them a chance to showcase their talents.
I wish I was as not good as you were, Phil.
Well, look, the quarterbacks are only as good as the receivers they have and the running backs they have and the line they have. I know there's other quarterbacks who have gone on to have great careers behind bad offensive lines and bad this and that. But it makes it a lot easier when you have the other part, the receivers, the running backs, and the offensive line.
No matter how long we live, 1978 is going to be a year in Missouri football history that people always reflect on. Do you reflect on it often? Is it something where maybe 2 times a year you think about, or do you think about it more often? Because when you look at the schedule, when you look at the victories, when you look at everything that goofballs like me think about, 1978 was just one of those years, man.
1978 was one of those years, and I'm not quite sure how you titled it. You play 3 teams that are ranked number 1. You beat 2 of those teams that were ranked number 1. You go, okay, that was a really good season. But you throw in the loss against Colorado, where you're up 27-7 in the middle of the 3rd quarter. Then you go to Stillwater and absolutely lay an egg.
Right.
That's the part that's obviously the disappointing part. That because the 4 years I was at Missouri, it was the one time that we got to play, one of the big 2 teams, Oklahoma, Nebraska, one of the big 2 teams after they had played the other big 2 team. In other words, we got to play Nebraska after they played Oklahoma. They beat Oklahoma. Now we get Nebraska. We beat Nebraska. If we don't stub our toe against Colorado and Oklahoma State, I believe we probably would have been awarded the Big 8 championship that year.
What's interesting,
because it's the only year that happened while I was there.
Looking back on it, people know Oklahoma ran the wish, Nebraska won the eye, but everybody, if I'm remembering this right, every team ran something different. So defensively, you had to think about a new scheme every game that you were in that conference. That's not the same as it is right now, but when you were going against these teams, did you realize maybe you could sneak some stuff in, be a little different because they didn't have 3 weeks of going against exactly what you were doing the week before?
Yeah, that's you described the biggest challenge of playing in the Big 8 back in that day. And you throw in the fact that we were the only team that had grass. So
Right.
That was a big advantage for us, a huge advantage. So that is probably the sole reason I'm not a big fan of college football right now. It's because everybody does the same thing.
Right.
So the teams that win are the teams that have the most talented players. It's not that they out scheme someone because everybody runs the same plays. Now, the reverse to that is if you're a high school player and you're interested in getting better, all you got to do is turn the TV on because you can see your offense being run. Back when I was in high school, well, first of all, games weren't on TV like they are today, but you just didn't see your offense being run on TV like it is today.
You didn't see the Malcolm bubble screen going up?
No.
Do you ever go on YouTube and watch old Mizzou highlights?
Sometimes. Because I got a couple of young friends down here who harass me all the time, so I always want to try to find some film because they don't believe that that I ever did anything. I was watching the Nebraska game a while back and the Alabama game. Those are probably the 2 games I probably watched the most. But when I look at my 4 years, the 77 year was just about surviving. The 78 year was the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, the thrill of winning those games, those big games, but losing those 2 games. 79 is just a heartbreak season. When you we lose those two close games to Oklahoma and Nebraska in Columbia. You know, we had a field goal attempt to end the game, could have beat Oklahoma. We could have at least tied Nebraska, and we decided to go for the win. And we had some bad losses that year. We lost to, I think we lost to maybe Iowa State and K-State. We were 6-5 that year. And then 80, my senior year, was probably the most gratifying season because we beat everybody we were supposed to beat, and we lost to Penn State, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. Because, you know, to be honest with you, I always considered us playing for third place in the Big Eight. You know, not that we couldn't play with Oklahoma and Nebraska, but it was always going to take a special day to beat those two teams. But I always thought we were just as good or better than the rest of the teams. But it took 4 years for me being there to finally accomplish that goal, which I think is a significant goal.
There were only 13 bowl games at the time, and you went to 3.
Right. And that's the other thing. So you think about it, that's 13 times 2. That's 2016 to get to go to bowls. Right. So that's basically the top 25 teams. Now, but yeah, the best we could ever get to was the Liberty Bowl.
And twice.
Yeah, right.
Talked about Penn State, the most attended game at Faurot Field. I think it's never going to change. You're in 6 of the top 8 most attended games at Faurot. That must have been fun.
It was the best. Look, I'm not even going to try to kid you that was the best 4 years of my athletic career playing at the University of Missouri, bar none. If you know, they always talk about if you had a chance to do anything over again, what would it be? It would be go back and do that again.
You know, Phil, as a fan, 1:00 kickoff, if I wasn't if I wasn't off of 70, 63 on stadium at 9:00, I wasn't getting into the game on time.
Well, back then it was the thing to do. It was Saturday afternoon, and there was a Missouri football game in town. It was the place to be and the thing to do. And again, it wasn't that we were some dominant powerhouse, but the one thing that we were a competitive team that was going to put our game out there each and every Saturday, win, lose, or draw, and it was going to be a good football game.
Do you have a good Leo Lewis story?
You know, no, my best story of an upperclassman is a guy named Lamont Downer. And he played my first 2 seasons. He was in the class with Kellen and Leo. When I got to Missouri, again, everybody's a good player in high school. In my case, it wasn't that I was perfect, but, I never had anyone really yelling and screaming at me. And I got to Missouri, and especially once I got in the position where I was the backup quarterback or the first string quarterback, Coach Jamison was on me in practice each day, every day, all day. And it was not something I was accustomed to. Now, it wasn't that he was belligerent. It wasn't that he was mean. That's just how he coached. And there was a day early on in that whole process when Lamont Downer told me, he goes, listen, the day you should be worried about Coach Jameson is the day he quits yelling at you, because that's the day that he quit caring about you. That might have been, not might be, that was the turning point of my career. Because then I understood why he was doing what he did. So, yeah, I would still reflect back on that and still share that story often.
I love that. And here's what I was going to ask you something, but now I'm going to ask you something else. How did you take that lesson forward? Like with your kids or with people? I know that you coach softball teams with Mizzou, and how did you take that lesson and pay it forward, if you will?
Well, I shared it with people, especially it's kids and players that you care about, that you know have more potential. You know, you have to assess who you're coaching, and you got to realize you can't. If you're an average player, you can't expect superstar performances out of an average player. But if you have a wealth of talent, but yet you're playing like an average player, that's when you have to try to motivate that player. And in motivating that player, you have to get them to understand why you are coming at them the way that you are. It's not to tear them down, it's to build them up. But especially today, kids don't respond very well to that these days, because they take that in a negative way. But when you think about it, if there's something you don't care about, or there's someone you don't care about, you're really not going to say a whole lot to that person, because they don't really have any significance to you.
There's a good joke that the only guy who could stop Michael Jordan was Dean Smith. At Missouri, could we say the only person who could stop Kellen Winslow was Warren Powers?
No, it was me.
It wasn't you. They were calling different plays.
Well, I don't want to get into that, but again, it was my responsibility to try to get those guys the ball. I mean, when it comes down to it, because that's what my job was. I mean, I made plays when I had to make plays, but the offense wasn't built around me. It was built around them.
All right, I'm going to embarrass you. We're 35 minutes into this, about another 20. When you retire, after the Big Eight dissolves in 96, only 3 players have more yards than you. 3. That's it. So you're so humble. You're so, it wasn't about me. In the history of the conference, you're done in 80. Conference dissolves in 96. You're still 4th all time. 79, 78, 80, number 1 in pass attempts, completions, passing yards. Here's what I love. Number 1 in complete percentage and total plays. And my last stat, to bore you, number 2 all time starting quarterback when Missouri football is ranked. So for a second, don't be humble. Talk about what it feels like to have accomplished that, because, dude, I'm a Missouri Tiger fan because of what you and your teammates did when I was growing up. And those 3 things I just named, I don't know why your number's not retired.
Well, we can talk about that part offline. But look, kid you not, I was very proud when I left the university to be the all-time total offense leader in the Big 8 Conference. All right. And what I was really proud of was Lynn Dickey reached out to me to congratulate me for breaking his record. And therefore, I believe was one of the Gundys broke my record, if I'm not mistaken, at Oklahoma State.
I think Mike Gundy, maybe.
Yeah. And I reached out to him to congratulate him. So, but again, all those statistics are a function of the offenses that I played with. But what really I take a lot of pride in it was we were somewhat of a conservative offense, because I really didn't feel like we really got the chance to open up the offense unless we were playing in a big game.
Right.
When we played the non-conference games, or we played, it was pretty much a ground attack. I think back a lot of times now when we played our non-conference season in 79 and 80 in particular, I didn't play but a little over half the game. We were beating those schools by so many points. We didn't. No, seriously.
I understand.
I mean, because after Coach Frio got fired, our schedule changed. If the 78 schedule was pretty reflective of Coach Frio. I think we played the 70. Let's see. Well, the 78 season was the 79 season. This schedule started to get I don't want to call watered down, but it wasn't the same schedule. You played San Diego State, we played New Mexico, we played those times. That's not to disrespect those institutions, but that's not Notre Dame and Southern Cal. So, but no, I am. I am proud of what I did at the university, and what I think I'm probably the most proud of is the fact that we did go to 3 bowl games. No, they weren't the Orange Bowl, and but again, back then, if it was the Orange Bowl, and if it wasn't the Orange Bowl, the rest of the bowls were pretty much locked up. It wasn't randomly you get to go to the Cotton Bowl because they had their affiliates, or the Rose Bowl. I don't even think the Fiesta Bowl even existed back then. So it was only the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and the Orange Roll Cotton. Is that the only 3? Am I leaving one out?
The Orange, Cotton, Fiesta. Sugar.
It was the Fiesta. The Sugar Bowl was the 4th bowl.
We had Mel Gray on earlier on another podcast. He said he just liked playing because they were on TV.
Yeah. So it was a different world, but I played with a lot of good players. I played against a lot of good players. Every time, when I see, I think Clay Matthews has retired now, who played for the Packers and then the Rams. But every time I would watch him, I think I played against his dad my first game. His dad was at Southern Cal. So I feel very fortunate and blessed that I was able to play in that era. I thought it was a special era of football, but again, everybody thinks that era is special. But again, I thought our era was very special.
All right, Phil, here's some questions from people that listen to the podcast. I threw it out there that we were going to have you on this morning. Here are a couple questions. Number 1, hardest hit you ever took?
Well, I got knocked out in Illinois. I guess it'd been my junior year. I mean, like flatlined out. I mean, but I don't know if it was the hardest hit I ever took because I didn't feel it. I got hit in the jaw. I got knocked out. I didn't feel it. They got me up. I was disoriented. And, and the funny thing was I missed like 3 plays and played the rest of the game. but
That's fine.
I mean, I had two. I mean, I had 2 separated shoulders during my career there. I mean, I had my share of injuries, but you know, but again, there wasn't a whole lot of protection for quarterbacks back then. I was a running quarterback. You know, I found out after the '78 Nebraska game that there was a bounty on me that if any Nebraska guy took me out of the game, he was going to make, you know, that's the era I played in. A matter of fact, when I look back at it, I had 1 roughing the passer penalty the whole time I was at Missouri.
Best player that you wish you would have played with in college?
Well, I mean, I played, you know, Barry Sims was in school back then. You know, every time, not that he's a great player, every time I see Todd Blackledge on ABC, it makes me sick because he was a quarterback that came in to replace Jeff Hostetler and won the game on that run. That makes, you know, I played. Look, I play. I don't know that I would trade the players that I got to play with any other players that I played against, to be honest with you. You know, I think what some of the other teams had, like Oklahoma in particular, was they had more of them. But I don't know that they had their players were any man for man any better than ours. You know, you remember the '79 Oklahoma game when Barry Sims literally won the Heisman Trophy against us that one game.
You know what's crazy about that? The Sims, it was like 10 carries, 18 yards. Missouri's doing great, but there were 3 carries for 72, 81, and 65.
Well, I can still vaguely remember the one where everybody on the defense had their hands on them at one point or the other, and they couldn't get them down.
Thus it is to be a Missouri Tiger fan, man.
Yeah.
All right, here's another question from the listeners that I kind of chuckled with. We're going to get in the baseball real quick. What's it like to be in Boston when they sing Sweet Caroline?
Oh, I don't even know that. I don't even know that I was even. I'm sure I knew they did it, but even when I played, I don't even know that I even acknowledged that.
What was the 1985 All-Star game like with all the festivities?
Well, that was a special time because my son was my son was just born like 2 weeks ago. Playing on the '85 All-Star team was similar to coming to the University of Missouri my freshman year. I was kind of a fish out of water. You know, I was kind of a person that was there but didn't quite believe that I deserved to be there because there were so many great players on that All-Star team that ended up being Hall of Famers. And for me, it was my second year in the major leagues. So I was just taking it all in.
How long you been married, Phil?
It'll be 40 years this year.
You're a rare breed, man, a professional athlete that stayed married.
Yeah.
Got a good proposal story?
No.
I read that your son actually football coach for some time at a time.
He's the head high school football coach down here at Braden River High School right now.
What offense do they run?
Run the spread just like everybody else runs the spread.
So you graduate from Mizzou, not looked at in the NFL as being a quarterback. Is that racism or lack of understanding skill set?
I'd like to think it was just a lack of size. If you think back to 1981, the quarterback prototype back then was 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus pounds with a big arm. It's just a matter of playing at the wrong time. Again, if you look at it, it's easy to say, if you'd be playing now, you could fit right in there. Yeah, that's right. But that's not the era that I played in. I had an opportunity to go to Canada. I turned down a 3-year contract to go up there. But where I was with my baseball, I felt like I couldn't at least pass up seeing what the opportunity was for me in baseball before I committed to football.
Senior year at Mizzou, over 500% on base average. For those doing the math at home, that means every 2 at bats, you were on base at least once.
Yeah, and no, again, it's just like high school. That was my coming out season. It was my senior year, but my third season because I didn't play my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I couldn't pass that up, and I would still make the same decision today, but I would still have the same feeling that I would still like to see what would happen if I'd have gone to Canada. I would have loved to have the challenge of seeing what NFL was like, but I knew that if I didn't get to play quarterback, I wasn't about to go to the NFL and learn how to play receiver or defensive back. That just was not going to happen.
What was your first at bat in the major leagues like?
I got the pinch hit against the Yankees.
Against
and
who?
I popped. It was nobody of any significance. The thing that I still remember about that was, Goose Gossage was warming up in the bullpen, and you could just tell that once he started warming up, the team just kind of knew the game was over.
Again, that following the Mariners at the time, Mia Copa, All-Star 85, scored 100 runs twice. I think the thing that I would be most impressed with if it was me, because of my lack of athleticism, stole 40 bases in a season. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, baseball was different back then. We stole bases. We did hit and run. We as they would call it today, we played small ball. But we just played baseball. And if you had speed, you were expected to steal bases. That contributed to you having an opportunity to score runs.
Did you like playing for Dick Williams?
I don't know that anyone says that they like playing for the late Dick Williams, but I played well for him in spite of it. You know, he was, the thing about Dick Williams was that he was all about fundamentals. He was all about execution. And if you were fundamentally sound, if you executed, you were going to get to play. Now, there was going to be no relationship with Dick Williams, which was fine, but his relationship with you was if he had your name in the lineup.
I like the advice Hal McRae gave you once.
Yes, that's another, between Hal McRae telling me that the most important thing is to do just one thing every day and take it home with you, and at the end of the season, see how many things you have in your closet. That was very helpful. And the validation of Lou Piniella gave me one day at Yankee Stadium when I said to him, I'm just happy to be here. And he says, you should be happy to be here because you belong here. That was very validating. And I know there's many people out there, and especially athletes, that show and have a lot of confidence. But it's one thing to show that you have a lot of confidence. It's entirely different when you feel it internally. And it's one of those things where, again, I was a young guy who thought I could play, but when you have people validate you, it just gives you that little bit of a boost to say, hey, I'm on the right path here, and just continue doing what I'm doing, and it's going to lead to something good.
From the Mariners, you go to the Phillies. You're at Wrigley at a night game. I got to tell you, I got to thank you. I've won a couple beers knowing who hit the first night home run in Wrigley Field history.
Yeah, but you have to put an asterisk by that fact.
When I'm drinking it, I don't put an asterisk now.
Well, I understand, but some people can call you saying, yeah, but the game didn't count. And I will say, yes, the game didn't count, but that doesn't take away the fact that it did happen. The fact of the matter is I did hit a home run at Wrigley Field, the first game that they had lights on.
Last time I saw Phil Bradley on the field was the second to last game at Comiskey Park. Couldn't get tickets for the last game, but we drove up to St. Louis and we sold our souls and got tickets for the second to last game. You were in the outfield next to a young Sammy Sosa. Did you have any idea?
Well, actually, the funny thing is I played with Sammy Sosa twice in my career. I played with him in 1990 with the White Sox. And then I played with him again in 1992, AAA with the Cubs, when he got traded to the Cubs. No, I didn't have any idea that he would turn out to do what he did. He was a young, skinny kid from the Dominican that had ability, but he was still trying to find his way.
So as we get ready to wrap this up again, for people who are liking this podcast, OTwithOliver, wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe you like the Mel Gray episode. Maybe you like the Howard Richards episode. We've interviewed a lot of people. What we're trying to do is document St. Louis, document important people, places, and things in St. Louis. Also, we're going to do a St. Louis 7 when we wrap this up. That'll be on YouTube. Explain to me, if you wouldn't mind, Phil, your current job that you've had a while with the Major League Baseball Association.
Let's see. Right now, my title is Special Assistant basically I deal with events we do internationally, and some events that we do, special events we do domestically, like we played a game in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. You know, a couple years ago, we played the game in London. Whenever we play overseas, what I do is I go over, or I'm part of the group that checks out the facility for player safety.
Hmm. Boy, is that now more important than ever?
I like to think so. I like to think so. I've been this season coming up. It makes year, I think 22. What I did for a long time was I was a kind of a player liaison, where I would go around and visit with players on a weekly basis, go from team to team. Now, primarily all I do is these special events. This year, our special events will be up in Dyersville, Iowa, and Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Did I read correctly that you and Dexter Fowler are kind of close, kind of tight?
I'm friends with Dexter, yeah, but yeah.
Are we still a fan of the bird feeders?
No, not anymore, because I live down here in Florida now, and I live in a gated community. I don't live out in the country anymore, or in a rural area. So a lot of those passions are over.
2013 Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. What did that mean to you?
Well, again, being part of Missouri athletics was a very special time in my life, and to be validated like that was special as well. I like to think that I made a positive contribution to Missouri athletics while I was there.
Hey, Phil, I'm going old school. No Mizzou, man. I'm going Missouri.
That's right.
That's what we need.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I hear you. If you noticed today, I probably didn't use Mizzou one time. My diploma says University of Missouri,
As
so
mine.
I'm old school that I just can't get myself to say Mizzou. So
It's on my logo, man. We're not doing the Mizzou thing. As long as we can hold out, we're going to hold out for Missouri.
Yeah.
You keeping tabs? You think Drink's got what it takes?
I'm sure he's a fine football coach. It's an uphill battle.
Right.
You're the northernmost school in the Southern Conference. Come on, let's just think about it. He can recruit. I just I look at it like, hey, if you can just kind of be like we were in the old days, where if you can finish, second or third place and maybe sneak up on somebody once in a while. But I just realistically, to think that you're gonna to beat Georgia and Florida and on a year in year out basis, and then if you draw some bad draws from the other side of the conference, it's just going to be a challenge. I mean, as long as people have realistic expectations, I think he'll be fine. It's just that when we start thinking, Missouri came into the SEC when the SEC East was down, and they snuck, and they had 2 really good years, and everybody thought, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then Georgia kind of got their footing, and Florida got their footing, and then it becomes like, no, it's not going to be quite that easy.
When's the last time you were at Faroe?
Maybe last year. Had an anniversary of something. I can't remember. Night was it a something anniversary? I can't. I think it was not this past fall, but the previous fall, I believe.
Couple last questions, Phil. And again, thanks for the time. We're going to wrap this up. When you do get back to Columbia, do you have a place you got to hit? You got a place that you just got to make sure you get back to?
No, it's about trying to connect with friends. I've been out of there for 5 or 6 years now. So it's about connecting with friends. It's not about the place. It's about the people. Because the place is different. Faroe Field is different. It's not the Faroe Field that, in 1978, when we played Alabama in the first home game, that was the first game that they had. The south end zone had bleachers, and now those bleachers are gone.
Right.
So it's not the same, So
for what it's worth, Phil, my dorm's gone. So.
No, yeah. So things change, but it's the people. I'm very close to Coach McCarter, the baseball coach that I played for. I stay in contact with him. So.
All right. So here's a quote about Phil Bradley that I found, and I found this in various forms, but when I read this, what do you think? And again, thanks for the time. Phil's the most straightest, honest guy, ethical guy that you're ever going to meet. There's not going to be any BS with Phil. I could bet my life on that one. I think that's a big old pat on the back, man.
Yeah, but in the same token, though, it's probably what it doesn't always play out to be a good thing. But that sometimes if you shoot straight, people might not like it, but it's still not gonna mean that you're not telling the truth. And so that's just kind of how I was raised, and that's kind of how I went about it. And it probably rubbed some people the wrong way over time, but at least I can live with myself.
I really enjoyed this. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out.
M-I-Z.
No, Toya, Z-O-U.